that later. But for today, last week, well, we were talking about estate planning. I have a long standing series where I'm talking mostly about estate planning, and we're going to interrupt that a little bit and switch things up and do things a little bit differently here today. I am kicking off a series of entrepreneurs and leaders, and today we've got Dr. Lacey Robbins in the studio. Dr. Robbins is an award winning leader with both a master's degree and a doctorate degree in leadership. Dr. Lacey is skilled in training organizational management on the essentials of talent retention and organizational culture. She is a businesswoman. She is an entrepreneur. She is a motivational speaker. She is a consultant. She is a pastor's wife. She's a mother. And she walked in this studio this morning, and more people know her here than know me. And I'm here every week. So, without a further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Lacey to the show.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here. I hear, am I on? I'm good to go. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here on this morning. And it's really nice to be able to see some familiar faces walking in today. Some folks I haven't seen for quite a while. Definitely tons of hugs and high fives going around. So
Right.
it's a good day.
Oh, yeah, you were very well received. I knew you were an honored guest from the get go, but you
Mhm.
walked in here high fiving and hugging and shouting and knowing everybody. So, I think that just adds to the benefit. So, thank you so much because I'm looking at all of the things that are on your plate, and yet you made the time to come here today to have this conversation. So
No, I'm
thank
so
you. Thank you again for being here.
well, thank you for the invitation. I'm excited for the conversation today. I'm excited about how you are bringing these messages to our community. And I specifically say our community because, you know, I can't help be but who I am. But the Bible says our people perish for a lack of knowledge.
There you
And
go.
so the knowledge is being imparted through these conversations. And so thanks for allowing me to be here at the table.
Yes, and we want you who you are right here at the table because that's who we reached out, and that's who you are, and that is so very welcome in this space. Now, for the couple of people out there that may not know who you are and what your background is, let's talk about that a little bit, Dr. Lacey. Where were you born?
So I was actually born in Tucson, Arizona. I'm from a military family, so my whole family preachers, teachers, servicemen, and my dad. I was he was stationed at David Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. So we moved. My mom was born and raised here in Milwaukee, so we moved to Milwaukee when I was 9. I am a product of MPS, graduate of Rufus King High School, not too
Okay.
far down the street from here.
Oh, we probably know a lot of people in
Right.
common then.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. HBCU grad as well. Super, super proud. Fisk University graduate. Go
Okay.
Bulldogs.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. So, you know what? You were born in Tucson, but having been raised here from the age of 9, I think we can still claim you. So we're going
absolutely.
to claim you as homegrown talent.
Let's do it.
I like
Let's
to
do it.
always point that out because I've had so many people here who I was a product of MPS, or I am a product of
Mhm.
MPS as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're out here making some bold moves in the world right now and doing good things all throughout Milwaukee. So
Yes.
that's the icing on the cake with respect to you. So that's interesting to know. So you graduated from Fisk. What were your graduation credentials?
So I actually have a bachelor's in English, a bachelor of arts in English. So ironically enough, when I started university, I thought I wanted to be a physician. So I went in as a biology major. First couple of classes, my stomach couldn't handle it.
Yep.
And so then I said, well, I'm going to change to English, become an attorney. You'll appreciate this.
Okay.
Did a law internship for 2 summers and was so bored. I think the reason
Uh-huh.
I wanted to become an attorney because I like to talk. I
Yes.
like to debate, but the things didn't line up. So I ended up going into education. And I feel even though I'm not formally in education, being a consultant, I still find myself in that education process.
Right, right. Well, you know what? It's interesting that you say that because sometimes these different fields will overlap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a trial attorney by training, and part of what I have to do, I consider myself to be an educator because if I stand in front of a jury, I must educate the jury in what what I'm talking about, what I'm there for, what my case is, how, I try to obviously persuade them in favor of whatever client that I'm representing. So it's important to be able to communicate and educate people in any field that you're in. So
Right.
that, I think that's great that you were an English major. I think that's interesting. For me, it was philosophy.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, the liberal arts. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what that was for me. So okay, so that's very, very interesting. So tell us a little bit about your work history. The medicine, I understand that with the biology, and
Yeah.
the law can be boring sometimes. So you did a pivot when you finished college. What
Hmm.
did you do initially?
Yeah, so I once upon a time was a first and third grade teacher. I was
Ah.
also an elementary school principal,
Mm-hmm.
and I left being an elementary school principal. Shout out to all the educators that are out there. I actually worked as a teacher in the inner city, and one day received a call from the suburbs. Would you consider coming and being an administrator here, because they were looking to diversify their talent? So I went ahead, did that. And in year 5 of being a principal, I had a student try to stab me with a hunting knife
Oh my goodness.
in the suburbs. Now,
Wow.
when I left the inner city, I never had a student try to fight me in the inner city. I did have a mom try to fight me in the grocery store once, in Nashville,
Oh
but
goodness.
never in the inner city did that happen. And so, mental health is real. And the student definitely had some challenges at home that I, as a mandatory reporter, was making my reports, and he felt as though I was threatening his family, right?
Mm.
So in that instance, obviously we were able to get the knife away from the student. I was unscathed and everything. But I did it for one more year, and I stuck in there for one more year. And looking back, I realized I probably had PTSD, and going to
Mm.
work every day. I was finishing my doctorate and so on and so forth. And so after 13 years in the same field, I quit my job and moved to Europe. I ended up moving to Florence, Italy.
Oh my goodness.
Loved it. It was
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. I never will forget my mom, who is a retired NPS administrator. She said to me, I understand the need to reconnect with yourself, but did you have to quit your job? Like, I really wish you would have talked to me about it, before you did that. And sometimes there's that notion of like, well, you got this good job and you done left this good job. What are you doing?
Right.
But it was the best decision I could have made for myself. Living in Florence, Italy, I studied art. I basically ate my way across Europe. I worked for an English speaking newspaper. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. One, I probably would have still perhaps been living there, but my
Hmm.
family guilted me in coming home.
I was gonna ask, what brought you back from that?
They were like, "You're just too far. We can't get to you," and family's very important to me anyway.
Okay, sure.
And so I'm most grateful that I did come back. And coming back, I was able to help to care for my grandmother in her last days. I actually was in the room when she took her last breath, caring for her. I was able to care for my father when he also transitioned in 2012. And so, everything works together, right? So that experience has led, and everything is all accumulating to who I am now.
Right.
And the biggest thing I ask myself, which I often will challenge individuals that I come into contact with, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
Mm.
What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? And so I approached this big move over the pond, right, with that in mind. And so my first interview, I'm interviewing for an English speaking writing position, because here comes that English degree, for an
Right.
English speaking newspaper in Italian.
Okay, I was gonna say, while you were in Italy,
While I'm in Italy, I went there primarily speaking Spanish to start with.
speaking Spanish. Wait a minute,
Yes.
hold on.
Yes.
That wow.
I know.
Okay,
I have a lot of passions. My
I
friends will
see.
say you live like a million lifetimes. But it all served me. And
Mhm.
so I had the opportunity. I was the arts columnist. I had the opportunity to interview different artists while I was there. All of this connecting together that then, would show up in their paper. and the paper was specifically designed for expats who were living there. At the time, it was 2008. President Obama had just been elected, and to
Okay.
be able to see how the Americas were perceived there versus here in the United States was
Yes.
like mind blowing. They were literally like parties in the street. People were celebrating when he was elected. And I would have people literally stop me and say, sono americana. And I say, sí, vero americana. Like, are you American? Yes, I am.
Okay.
Did you vote? Did you vote? I'm like, well, we really don't talk about that. And I'm like,
Right.
yes. Well, did you vote Obama? I'm like, well, that's not really something that we talk about. Okay, but did you vote Obama? So I can only imagine how things are now with this next pending election.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it was a dynamic and wonderful experience. I made friends that I still am in contact with. I remember going to events. There would be people from Germany, Japan, the Americas, Italy, and the only common language would be Italian. It was
Yes.
just such, it was amazing. It's definitely a fingerprint upon my life.
So, of all the places in the world, what prompted you to go there?
The Holy Ghost, 100%. It was God
Mm-hmm.
speaking to me and like, this is where you need to be. And I remember thinking, well, maybe one day I'll go to Italy, and the Lord literally saying like, well, why
No,
not
right
Italy?
now.
Why not now?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a time of reconnection for myself and just
Mm.
being there. While there, I visited Paris, I visited London, I visited Turkey. I remember being in Ephesus, seeing where, and at this time, my walk was very different, but just
Mm-hmm.
seeing like, okay, well, this is where Paul preached to the Ephesians. Like, this is amazing. And,
Mm.
you know,
Okay.
being in just how the cultures are so different.
Right.
And I love, I personally just love cultures. I love being in spaces where it's not all one dominated culture,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a way I feel like we can learn from each other as
Mm-hmm.
well, and conversations and such.
So, how long were you there?
I was there for about a year,
Okay.
before I had to, I shouldn't say had to. I was encouraged to come home,
Right.
and I had friends who were like, "Oh, well, when are you coming back? We'll see you when you get back." I'm like,
Right.
I don't know when I'll be back." They're like, "What do you mean you're leaving? How is this possible?"
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
"Well, it's time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time." Mm.
So, when you came back to the States, what was the next step in your career path to get to where you are today?
Oh, so there was a recession, and with a doctorate, I could not find a job.
What was your doctorate in?
So my doctorate is in leadership with an emphasis in neuroscience, specifically metacognitive theory, which is thinking about
Oh, I
thinking.
have that written down because I was going to ask you about those two things. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And
yes.
I couldn't find a job. And I thought I was going to be able to get a job at the university teaching in Chicago. That fell through. And so I ended up working at Sears Portrait Studio,
Okay.
taking portraits with a doctorate, but it was
Oh,
a job.
okay.
And
Okay.
so that was important to me. And so I would be taking portraits. I remember shooting like a wedding as a number two, the second photographer, not the primary. I remember taking like senior pictures, all in trying to generate dollars to figure out like what's next.
Right.
And
Right.
so, through the process of working at Sears Portrait Studio, I learned about an organization called Red Line Milwaukee. They're now closed, but it was a nonprofit. And I started with an artist in residency there. And
Okay.
so I'm still taking pictures, still, at this point now, I'm showing more of my work here. Actually having shows, selling work, so on and so forth. And through that, I learned about an opportunity at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And so now I was like, okay, this is a quote real job again, right?
Okay.
And so working at MAM, I worked there as the final position I had was manager of school and teacher programs. I was there for about 4 years, and as a part of being there, I actually remember receiving the Robert S. Duncanson Artist in Residence in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And that was a real pivot point for me because after I achieved that, I kind of felt like I'm okay, if I don't continue to make art formally for others to enjoy. I'm okay with that. And I was headhunted out of MAM for another nonprofit arts education company, headhunted from there for another nonprofit working with professional development and education. And through that process, my husband, he says to me, you're doing all this for everybody else. I feel like you could do this for yourself.
So were you married to him at that time?
Yes.
Okay, tell everyone who your husband is,
Oh my
please.
gosh, my boo thing, my bestie, my man, my man, my man. So my husband is Bishop elect or Bishop designee Aaron Robbins, Wayne Aaron Robbins Sr. And a lot of people know Pastor Robbins. He is the pastor of Compel Family Life Center, which is a church plant located here in Milwaukee. He is absolutely amazing. That's my bestie.
That's
I
wonderful.
love my
And he's
husband.
your bestie and he's your business partner.
And he's a business partner with me,
Yes,
so
yes.
we can just have vision and come up with a lot of great ideas and
Yeah.
expand and
And when you go to call business meetings, you don't have to go too far
don't have to
because
go
there
too
he is,
far.
right?
Sometimes it's just pillow talk.
Right.
This is gonna be a business meeting right now, right? So yeah, it works out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the different business ventures that the two of you are involved in. And that you also, first of all, you have all of this going on. You've got these professional commitments. You've got your husband who's a pastor. You're the first lady of a congregation, and you've got children.
Yes.
Tell us about your kids first, and then we'll talk about the
Oh my
business.
goodness, God's grace. So we are a blended family. So our oldest, she just finished her first year at Hampton University. So proud of her. Her name is Ariana, and Ari is actually majoring in business. We're really excited because she's in a special program that'll allow her to come out with her MBA. So it's a 5-year
Awesome.
program. So she only has 4 years left. Then we have brother AJ. Brother AJ, he's the man in the middle. And AJ, I'm so excited for him because he's all things media. And so anything with media, photography, production, he probably would love to be here today,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was thinking that when you
Right,
said it.
exactly. I should
Yes.
have bought him with me. But
Mhm.
so
Next
he
time.
is at MATC. He'll
Mhm.
be finishing his high school certificate diploma there this December, and then he'll start in their college program. So he's already pipeline in as well.
Wonderful.
And then our baby girl, who is our gift from the pandemic, Miss Angela. So she goes by her middle name, mostly Selena, but she is 4, well, just turned 5. That's actually this past weekend. And so she's probably going to be running all the businesses when it's done. She likes telling people what to do.
Okay. Yep. We've got a little one in our family that I don't know if it's that generation, that alpha generation, but they have
Yeah.
that alpha demeanor. Even the
Yes.
girls, like
Yes.
they're
Mhm.
future leaders for sure.
Absolutely. And so it's a delicate dance of not wanting to quelch that, but also you need to do what I said so
Well,
because I'm the
exactly.
mama.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
I understand that as I'm auntie, I'm TT as they call, but
yes.
it's the same thing.
Hmm.
So from what I've read and I did a little research with your background, do you tend to specifically focus on women leaders? Do you focus on the female population in terms of leadership development more so than others?
Yes. So, and like I was mentioning in 2017, my husband, well, really 2016, 2017, he was saying to me, "You're going around doing all this for everybody else. You should really do it for yourself." And, I just thought, that's my husband. He's, of course, always my cheerleader. He's being nice. But I had 4 other women in the mouth of many witnesses say something similar. And so at that point, I'm like, God, I'm listening. And so my target audience was very much women, partly because in my research I'm seeing what they're experiencing, what they're going through as women leaders. I know for myself what I'm experiencing, right, as a woman leader. As time has continued to evolve, I definitely have serviced men as well who've come through. Because some different organizations will hire us, and when I say us, I'm saying Robin's Nest Consulting, to come in and offer support or work with teams. And so obviously I'm not exclusionary in that regard. But when it comes to like one-on-one coaching, I do tend to still most times attract women leaders. But of course, I got a couple smart fellas that get in there too.
Okay, that sounds good. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from the break. You can call us at 414-444-5250 for any questions you may have for Dr. Lacey as we continue our discussion in our series on entrepreneurs and leaders in the community. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can easily find coverage options that fit your budget. If only it was that easy to name your baby.
How about Jaden?
Nope.
Okay. Michael?
Went to middle school with a glue-eating Michael.
Sebastian?
Dated one in college.
How about Damien?
Vampire name.
All right. Greg?
Not feeling it.
Okay. No worries. Jeffrey?
Oh, love that one.
Wait, really?
No.
Find coverage options that fit your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Raising glasses and hopes. Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair celebrates Milwaukee's change makers. Come and be a part of our annual Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair, Saturday, July 27th at St. Francis Parish. Embrace a delightful afternoon while supporting our organization and celebrating 9 extraordinary women who have significantly impacted the lives of Milwaukee citizens. Together, let's strive to raise $30,000 for essential programs and services. Enjoy the soothing melodies of jazz music, savory, delectable cuisine, and witness the inspiring unity of exceptional women and men dedicated to a noble cause. Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair promises to be an opportunity to meet new friends and reunite with old ones. An unforgettable gathering for a great purpose. For tickets or more information, please call 414-798-0918 or visit claww.org.
Tune in to More Than That, Gia Peppers Live, this Saturday, July 20th at 9 a.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by Buick, combining beauty and technology to deliver luxurious experience. Buick, exceptional by design.
Join the Wisconsin Black Chamber of Commerce every third Thursday at 10 a.m. inside Community Voice with Keith Paris for the Black Chamber Moment. Tune in as we discuss business, networking, and money as we make Black people the largest employer of Black people here on 860 WNOV and 106.5 FM.
WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
Welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Lacey Robbins in the studio with us this morning. Before we went to break, Dr. Lacey was talking to us a little bit about her focus on women leaders in terms of her mentorship and the different businesses that she runs, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But we were discussing that there's sometimes different obstacles in leadership for women. Would you give us an idea or just an overview of what that's all about?
Absolutely. So with Robbins Nest Consulting, one of the main objectives that we focus on is really education and empowerment. And so if we center and start with education and empowerment, that's going to allow you to see more yourself versus the external entities that you're coming against on a daily basis. So the biggest obstacle that a lot of women leaders have is themselves. So a lot of people are familiar with the term of imposter syndrome, and it's something that's thrown around a lot. But essentially what that's saying is, are they going to figure out that I'm a fake? Or do I really have the skill set and the capability to do this job? So one of the big things that I encourage women leaders to realize is and this is no shade to the brothers. Typically, when a woman is there is a job description, job posting, and they're trying to decide, should I apply for this job or should I pass? It's like 40 things that you're necessary. And if they don't have all 40 or maybe 38, they're not going to apply for them. Whereas our male counterparts may have 2 things and they'll still apply.
Yes.
And so that in itself is one of the first things that you have to shift. Like, you may not have everything that's listed. This is saying the ideal candidate. That doesn't mean that you can't learn some of the things that are listed there. Apply for the job. The second thing that a lot of women leaders are combating is just how they show up in leadership. So there are 2 styles of leadership. There's agentic leadership and there's communal leadership. So agentic leadership is typically how men show up in their leadership. So that's like, do as I say, I'm giving you the direction. It's very much directive, so on and so forth, right? You need to follow as I'm doing. Whereas communal style leadership is like, let's gather all the thoughts in the room and then make some decisions, perhaps together, or I'll gather all the information that you're sharing and then I'll use that to make a decision. Women tend to lead in that regard, right? More of a
Okay.
communal style leadership, but they're told you need to lead more like men. But what does the research say? Well, the research actually describes that the more effective leader is that leader who is communal. They tend to retain team longer. They tend to be able to do bigger projects faster simply because they're involving everyone as a part of that conversation. But we are told you need to be more agentic and more male-like in your leadership. So it doesn't make sense. And so this leads us to the third issue or challenge a lot of women leaders tend to deal with, which is likability versus competence. And so you can be seen as either likable or you can be seen as competent, but typically not as both. And so as a woman leader, you have to know when you need which, in which circumstance, but you also have to realize and know that if I am never seen as likable, am I okay with that?
Right.
Because you always need to be seen as competent in the job that you're doing.
Okay. This is fascinating. I'm telling you, we need a whole show just on this topic. And I'm a student of leadership.
Yes.
Okay. It's a fascinating topic for me. And I've read different books about leadership, but honestly, I don't believe I've read very many that take into account the female perspective.
Yes.
So this is fascinating. This is educational, even for me sitting here.
And the world of work and business has really been designed around men. So even if you think about the temperatures that are set for offices, most women, it's like you're carrying around a sweater all 365. That's because when the temperatures were first established in business and corporate offices, they were established around how a man's body is running, right, from a temperature. And most men run hot all the time. We typically don't. And so that is just in itself. And I mean, I could literally go on and on and on and on. And so it's like, once knowledge is power. So once you realize, okay, here are some of the things that I'm dealing with, then you can then make a determination how you show up and respond to them.
Okay.
And that's where really the power then lies.
Oh, sure. Now, I keep saying I would like to have you just kind of talk a little bit about each of the business ventures that you have going. But before we do that, I have to circle back and talk about your leadership development seminars that you conduct, because you talk about leveraging the metacognitive theory that you mentioned earlier. And I said, I wrote that down. I'm circling back to that. And the neuroscience to garner results. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Sure. So metacognitive theory is essentially thinking about thinking, and using neuroscience in your approach is realizing like some of your thoughts don't align. So they call that cognitive dissonance. So in essence, it's 75, 80 degrees today. It's a warm day. But if I went and put on a fur coat, your brain is like, now, wait a minute. It's a warm day. Why are we putting this fur coat on? These two things don't align. And so if you're trying to make like a change in your life or a pivot in your life, your brain's whole responsibility is to protect you. And so your brain is going to say, well, no, that feels uncomfortable. Why would we quit our good job and move to Europe? Why would we quit our good job and decide to become an entrepreneur? Why would we do that? And so there's cognitive dissonance. So you literally have to capture that thought and replace it with a new truth, because we have two brains. We have the conscious, which is where we are now, how we're communicating, we're awake. And we have the subconscious, which is almost kind of like that back tape that's always playing.
Yes.
And so the subconscious believes whatever you tell it. And so you can put your subconscious to work, and you can literally have that subconscious start to change and replace it with a new thought. So if I'm saying to myself, I want to quit my job, I have to understand my why. And why is that entrepreneurship is going to be the better choice? Why is moving to Europe going to be the better choice? Because now my subconscious is going to believe it. And it's going to then start to look for evidence of this being the positive. So that's when you start to fire up your reticulation activation system, the RAS.
Okay.
And so when you fire that up, it's now looking for evidence that this is indeed happening. So it's almost like if I said to you, don't think about when you leave here, black Teslas. All you're going to see in your drive home now are black Teslas, because you have fired that up, right? Or if I say, don't think about oranges, as a type of fruit. Or you're going to be like, gosh, I want an orange. Let me see. How juicy will it be? So on and so forth. And so now what starts to happen, you start to see evidence of the success of your decision. Okay, here's when I've done a good job. Here's the feedback that I'm receiving. Now you have a dopamine release. Because you're dope, right?
Of
So
course.
dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's one of the feel-good neurotransmitters, and it's going to feed. It almost acts like a Marco Polo effect. So your brain is like, dang, I want more of that. So let's do more of that. So when you try to go back to what used to be comfortable, your brain is like, no, sis, we like this over here now. Let's move more to that and do more of that over here. And so this is how you can literally rewire your thought processes and rewire your brain in as little as 15 seconds a day. You can do this. So it's by like visualizing. And so sometimes it's like, that sounds awfully granola, or that sounds very new age, right? But no, it's very much rooted in the word. So, Habakkuk tells us, write the vision and make it plain. So you have to see yourself as where you are striving to go to. And you know what's so interesting about this? It works the opposite way as well.
Really?
Yes. So if you have like those people that try to get in your circle who are always negative, they never can see that the glass is half full. That is why. And so you have to also realize that the very thing that you maybe don't admire in someone, you have that in yourself, which is why you see it. And the very thing that you do like about somebody, like, man, they got it going on, or they always just seem so put together, you have that in you as well, which is why you see it. And so once you start to realize, okay, this is how my brain is working, you can start to shift it. And that's where the power comes in. That's where the empowerment starts to happen.
Wow.
And so the same thing happens with leaders. So even like I'll tell my clients, before you go into a big meeting, what's your walk-up music? So like you're like the Brewers, right? What's your walk-up music? And so for me, anytime before I'm giving a keynote, my walk-up music is Jill Scott, Golden. I'm living my life like it's golden.
Living life
and
like it's golden.
Like it's golden. And that's my walk-up music. And so that puts me into a mindset, which then tells my brain it's time. It's time to shine. It's time to let the people know. Here we are. Let's make this happen.
Amen. Jermaine, looks like you got something to
Listen
add.
here. I almost grabbed that bucket and walked around the station and collected an offer. And give her that good word. No, but listen, what you just said is true, because music sets the atmosphere and it puts you in the mode of either you're going to go get it or you're going to, it sets the atmosphere.
Yes.
So coming up to music, getting ready to do what you do, it puts you in that mind frame. So it sets it. I just wanted to give my offering on that.
Yeah, no, I saw you looking like you're ready to shout over there.
Yeah, man,
I said, let's hear from the man. Let him jump in on this.
And that's so true. And this is why music, so sound, as well as smell, are the strongest connection. Smell, the olfactory sense, is the strongest connection to memory. This is why you can, like, for me, I'll smell Palmolive dish detergent and I'm right back. I'm 42nd and Roosevelt in my grandmother's kitchen. And, and it's time to wash dishes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if we know this about ourselves, we can then set places in process so that we can continuously train ourselves to be ready to go get it, to be ready for the next thing.
Oh, I can see why you are a motivational speaker. You mentioned Robin's Nest Consulting.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is. And then I know we're going to talk a little bit about the church and the other businesses, but since you mentioned that one earlier, let's talk about what that is.
So Robin's Nest Consulting is a learning and leadership development firm. We are located here in Milwaukee. However, we have consultants that are in our cadre that are nationwide. So Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and Wisconsin. And so depending on where our client is, we are able to go in and support them on something specific that they are looking for. So, for example, Northwestern Mutual, WEDA, City of Milwaukee, these are some of our clients, the Department of Children and Families, Reach Counseling, Alverno College. Like, these are some of the clients that we've had the opportunity to work with around leadership. Campbell Soup, U.S. Bank. Should I go on?
Oh,
and
no.
So,
it's great. It sounds like a fabulous corporate client base. So you're
Yes.
able to go in, and when you do that, then you're talking to the executives, to the leadership staff, how to retain people, the culture of the
Exactly.
organizations, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so both not only the current C-suite, but also working with their, we'll call them aspiring leaders or high potential talent as well. And so really being able to support them, like, for example, around communication and how, as a leader, do you show up and communicate with the individuals around you, or just in leadership in general and fortifying their leadership skills. DEI, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, being able to also support around change management. So these are some of, and this is like actual workshops. So we basically are going in and offering either transformational professional learning, results-based consulting, going in and offering keynote speaking services as well. And so everything connects together. So RNC, Robinson's Consulting, we started in 2017, and we initially started really supporting entrepreneurs, individuals that were in business, and then we took a pivot working more with government, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. However, as you continue to grow and we continue to expand our offerings, we've had people come and say, I'm a small business owner. Can you support me? Or I'm considering entrepreneurship. Can you support me? And, in the past, I was like, yes, yes, yes. But as time has continued on, I've had to really niche down. I want to be able to bring that back to be able to support those individuals who are trying to think, is entrepreneurship right for me? That's where the Professional Pivot Project comes in.
Right.
So that people can really decide, do I want to make a professional pivot? And being able to support them in that decision.
Yes. I'm going to ask you right now that we will have you back to talk specifically on that topic,
Yeah.
because I think that is a show in and of itself.
I would love to.
We've touched on about 5 shows since we got started today, but that in particular, I would really love to have you come back and talk about that, and maybe we can pair it with a little more with the leadership discussion, or maybe the leadership discussion needs to stand alone. I don't know, but I value and appreciate your time, but I really, really would like for you to come back and talk about that pivot project.
I would love to, because there's power in the pivot, right? And you can make it. And unfortunately, we've been sold on this notion that you stay 20, 30 years in a job, that good job, get your watch, get your retirement, or whatever the case might be, and then move on. But what if you made the determination to live for yourself, to strive for yourself, to work for yourself? What if you decided to open one of the top 10 job or top 10 businesses that have the lowest failure rate? What if you decided to do that?
Right.
What difference could that make?
And the question you asked when we started, what would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Exactly.
That's a big one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us about your church venture with your husband. Talk about that a little bit.
So Compel Family Life Center is a church plant. It's one that began, and I really have to say, God gave it to my husband how to design this. A lot of times when people have a church plant, they're told, well, go and start. The way that God gave it to my husband was start with a Bible study. So in 2014, we hosted a Bible study for 2015, we hosted a Bible study for about a year. And with that, it was a way to garner interest. We actually held informational meetings. A church is a nonprofit. And so we started it as such, even conducting research, looking at the census, where is the ideal to plant this church, knowing that our target audience, as they call it, right, would be families. So we need to plant where families are. There's so many churches that are all right one across the street from the other. So let's go where maybe they're not as many, so that we can be an alternative, right? There's a community that's there who may be looking for a church home. So in 2016, we actually opened up the doors of the church formally. April 2016 opened up the doors of the church formally with Sunday mornings and so on and so forth. In 2020, we purchased our facility, 4057 North Mayfair Road, so 124th in Capitol, right? Mayfair Road and Capitol, which was formerly a Lutheran church. We purchased our campus and facility there. And so we are committed to Christ, family, and community. Everything that we do, everything that we offer is through one of those 3 lenses. And if it's not, we're not doing it. And so this becomes like a cross check for us as members, for our leadership team, for our pastor, my husband, for myself. When we're offering anything, offering any sort of programs, are we committed to Christ, family, and community? So our mission is to impact, literally. And so if it's not doing that, then why are we doing it?
Exactly. And that's interesting the way you got started, because the first thing that popped in my head was Joyce Meyer Ministries. Joyce Meyer started off with having Bible studies in her home. That was how God gave it the vision to her too, to get started. And now look at it, it's a worldwide ministry that's known everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a very interesting way to start. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Robin's Nest Consulting. We've talked about the church, and you've got multiple other operations going. Tell us a little bit about the trucking business.
Yes. So A&A Services and Transportation, named after our children, Ariana, AJ, and Angela. So she came along after we started the trucking business, but we're not changing the A&A. Nevertheless, we started the trucking business because we wanted to create jobs. We saw people who were trying to get work, not able to. Like a lot of businesses, we were sitting around the table at the holiday trying to decide, okay, what business do we want to start next? And it was 2019. And, we were throwing around a couple different ideas. One family member said, well, what if you all did CBD? And my husband's like, well, CBD, well, what is that? And, he's like, marijuana? I can't be doing marijuana. And so,
yeah, Jermaine, you were a little too quick to laugh at that one.
And so, needless to say, we did not focus on CBD, but instead we decided to focus on transportation and logistics. And with our transportation and logistics company, we have been able to offer jobs to individuals in some instances that it may have been a little bit more difficult for them to be employed. We've had veterans who've been drivers for us. We've had people who are re-entering into community. And it really has been an interesting journey as well, because I never saw myself as the queen of trucking, which is what I was joked as walking into the different yards and such. Because just like I am today with my high heels, I would go to the yard like that because I was on my way to the next thing. And so they'd say, well, here comes the queen of trucking. And so we just
in her stilettos,
in my stilettos. And so I just, from process to practice, grab your stilettos and let's go. That's our tagline for Robin's Nest. So I just kept the party going.
I saw that and I thought she's gonna laugh. I got on my ballet slippers today, but
that's right. I have the stilettos on for us today.
Yeah.
And so as a part of that, we have we learned that business literally.
Okay.
And with an intention of how can we also create legacy for our children. And so we've had a couple pivots as we've gone through it, but it is also one of the top 10 businesses that doesn't fail. It's it's one of the top 10 businesses that has the highest success rate. Is trucking and transportation.
Right. And you shared with me a little bit before we came on the record that, you had to be smart about it and you learned some things because the business took off exponentially.
Way too fast.
And that's the thing. Sometimes people don't understand that. And I said, yeah, businesses can be killed by growth if you're not careful.
Yes.
But you learned that specifically with respect to this operation.
Yes, the hard way.
Will you share that?
We learned that the hard way. Yes, we learned that the hard way. So we grew way too fast, to the tune of like multi too fast. And it almost killed the business, right? Because you also have to have the infrastructure in place when you grow quickly. And so
that's the part people don't understand. It just sounds good to have all that revenue coming in, but you've got to be able to handle the operation.
Absolutely. And so, at one point we had, probably close to 23 trucks. And that was everything from Sprinter vans to step downs to box trucks to semis to passenger buses. Like we had it all. And so last summer we took a pivot and we got rid of all of the box trucks. We got rid of all of the step downs and all but 2 box trucks and 1 Sprinter van and the semis and the passenger. Then this winter we did another pivot. all the box trucks. I'm got one box truck left. Anybody interested, call me. You know, and we have a passenger bus now that's available. Call me. And so we're getting rid of all the passenger at the end of this summer, and we're just focusing on semis.
Okay.
So, you know, when you run the numbers, what gives me the greatest revenue and the margins? I have to look at what is my expense to revenue margin, and semis are going to give me the best margins there. It also is the greatest risk for sure. That's the thing that, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a driver call me, I guess it was the night before last, who was like, "Hey, Miss Lacey, I have a blowout." I'm like, "Okay, baby, call the emergency number in the corner." You know,
Yeah.
it's midnight, you know.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so you have to be ready to deal with those things. And I will say what has helped the trucking business operation to run well is being able to have operations. And this is what has allowed us to be able to have so many businesses, is we have operations managers in place.
Right.
And so that keeps everything going. And so the trucking is a lot of fun though too. I'm always curious, like, well, what are we hauling today? So like I have a driver right now who's in Oklahoma at I think he's at the dollar store waiting to make his drop.
Okay.
You know, so I'm like, well, what are we taking today? Well, where are you going? Where is he headed next? And so, you know, that's just my curiosity. But and I had somebody ask me, well, is it one of those businesses you can set and forget? No business you can set and forget. So even when they want you to think, well, I'm just going to make passive income, that is a farce. Passive income is no income. And so even you always have to be knowing and looking at your numbers so that you know, where do I need to make a change and where do I need to make a pivot. And we quickly, like when we took the time to like, let's really dig deep in the numbers, we were able to see semi is going to be the way to go. You know, and let's just run regional and OTR, so over the road, and regional, sometimes instances just power only. So when I say power only, sorry, I'm getting into the trucking talk now. When I say power only, that's literally just the semi, no trailer on it.
Okay.
And so you're just moving trailers, so hook and drop.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I was just thinking, there's the ministry, and we talked about the Robin's Nest, but that's also like a ministry.
Absolutely.
And now even talking about the trucking, even that's a ministry.
Yep.
With you. You know, I'm seeing the theme, like all of this relates together.
Absolutely.
Are there other business operations and ventures that you're involved in?
So we have I know, right? So we do have a it's I would say a renaissance of a rebirth. So in 2005, the Compel Them to Come Incorporated was founded. This is my family's nonprofit. And it was actually founded by my mother-in-law and my father-in-law as a way to be able to support, at the time there was quite a bit of teen pregnancy that was happening.
Okay.
And so they wanted to be able to do their part to assist with that. As time went on, they also started working with incarcerated individuals with reentry programs and going into the jails so that they could assist them in understanding, specifically fathers, how do you have rights with your children? How can you support your child, get your child support back on track, those sort of things? How can you retain your license or get your license back? And then the pandemic hit. And so Compel Family Life Center was birthed out of Compel Them to Come, the family nonprofit. But when the pandemic hit, it really forced things to kind of peter down. Well, it's back. And it's back as an adult day activity center. And so my mother-in-law has actually sunsetted out. She's transitioned from being the executive director and has now moved to be the board chair, and I am actually moving in as executive director for Compel Them to Come Adult Day Activity Center. And so right now through the month of July and part of August, we are actually hosting preview days every Thursday from 9 to noon. And then the grand opening is August 21st, which is Thursday at 9 a.m.
Fabulous. We will talk a little bit more after the break. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Money Talks with Attorney Coral with our guest, Dr. Lacey Robbins, in the studio this morning. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I have Dr. Lacey Robbins in the studio this morning. Dr. Robbins, before we went to break, you were talking to us a little bit about the Adult Day Activity Center
Yes.
that you're in charge of now. So I would like for people to be able to contact you about potentially participating in that center. So tell us how we can reach you for that.
Absolutely. The best way would be to visit our website, which is compelthemtocome.org. So that's COMPEL, themtocome.org. There you can learn more about the organization. You can also find our address. We are actually operating out of the garden level of our church, Compel Family Life Center, 4057 North Mayfair Road. As I mentioned, we are hosting preview days, is what we're calling them, every Thursday from 9 to noon. And our grand opening is actually August 21st, which I'm super excited about, to be able to also tell the story that this is a family business. This is a family nonprofit that now is going to the next generation. And that's really what it's about when you're starting a business. Like, can this be something that is passed on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give us that website one more time.
Absolutely. It's compelthemtocome.org. So it's COMPEL themtocome.org.
Okay, thank you so much. So Dr. Lacey, obviously you're someone that we're going to need to have back on the show at a later time to expand on some of the things that we just scratched the surface on today. But I was reviewing some of your, I'm calling them thought-provoking quotes, and I'd like to go through a few of them and just give us some context in terms of what you mean. One of the quotes was, "You must be engaged." Why is that important?
So being engaged means, are you engaged in your life? Like, this is your life, right? There are no do-overs. This is not a dress rehearsal. And so really take the risk. You can always bounce back. You can always start over. Even if you decide, I'm going to go into entrepreneurship, you have to first have the mindset that I'm going to at least try. And so be engaged in your life, be engaged with those who are around you, because time continues to march forward. And so you want to make the best use of your time.
Excellent. All right. Another one of yours that I wrote down was, fear and fact cannot exist together. What do you mean by that?
So fear and faith, yes, absolutely, cannot exist together. So
was it faith? Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So basically it goes back to that cognitive dissonance. So you cannot have opposing thoughts in the same mind. So either you're going to decide to believe or you're not. It literally is a decision. It's the same with love. Like, you make the decision to love. It's a verb. It's an act. And so either you're going to make the decision to do so or you're not. There's no in between. There's no gray.
Right.
Period.
Okay. That's to the point, right? You talked a little earlier about the power of the pivot.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The power of the pivot. So that goes directly to the Professional Pivot Project. You can learn more about that by visiting robinsnestconsulting.com, and that's 2 B's for Robbins. And really, the Professional Pivot is about being empowered enough to make a change. You do not have to stay in the state that you're in, right? You can make a choice. If your life and you're not enjoying it right now, you don't have to stay there. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, what you're engaged with, even what your relationships look like, you can make a change in how you show up. Now, I can't change you. I can only change my response to you. End of story.
End of story. All right. The last one, Robin's Revelation. Tell us what that is.
So Robin's Revelations is basically the big idea, the aha. It's me taking someone else's thought and then putting my spin to it. So for example, we already know that death and life is in the power of the tongue. We will eat the fruit thereof. But if I was to Robin's Revelationize that, I'm basically saying your future or your funeral is proceeding out of your mouth daily.
Whoa.
So choose what you will say.
Words of wisdom. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Lacey. We appreciate you coming today. And that's it for us this week. We're going to continue our journey of bringing entrepreneurs and leaders. And next week, I will have none other than the president, the CEO, and the chair of the board of Columbia Savings and Loan, Mr. Ernest Jones, will join me in the studio next week. Thank you so much to Columbia Savings for sponsoring the show. We're going to bring the chief in next week to talk about the bank. Thank you so much. We'll see you then.
WNOV